to spend a lot of time. I think the whole purpose of us convening in this room in the main is for us to get a sense from the minister who has been leading the Energy Transitions Working Group meetings to take us through the outcomes. Today is a culmination of all the official meetings that we've had since the beginning of the year. And as we commenced with our presidency in the beginning of the year, we invited members of the media to a roundtable where the minister outlined our priorities and our program. So today marks the end of those discussions of the Energy Transitions Working Group, and the minister will take us through the outcomes. We wish to thank you because most of you have really been part of that journey from the very beginning, from the very onset when we had our roundtable. And today, we, through the minister, are going to deliver the outcomes of the program that has been basically playing itself out throughout the year in the various series of meetings that we've had, the officials meetings, and today, or rather in this episode, the ministerial. So I don't want to waste any further time. I would like to invite the minister to the podium. So I'd like to hand over to the minister. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. We advise myself and the DM that we come to field questions, but we advise that we must also say something about the outcomes. First is that this is a culmination of almost 10 months of hard work by the technical teams led by DG Acting Interim Director General Mr. Subeshvili. As you all know that we took over the presidency of the G20 from Brazil on the 1st of December, I think, last year. Our presidency now is about to come to an end, and we're going to hand it over to the Americans. This will be immediately on the conclusion of the heads of state, or if you like, the summit that will be attended by the heads of state. In South Africa, we have agreed that being the only sovereign country on the continent as a member of the G20, that we are going to position this as Africa's G20. Of course, the AU is also a member of the G20, but as you also know that the AU is not a sovereign nation state. And then we further agreed that the priorities of the G20 will reflect in the main challenges of the continent and the global south, but also we are not separating ourselves from just challenges across the length and breadth of the group. So it will not be just a conversation about the global south and Africa, but really it's about what we think are issues that requires attention, and of course with a special emphasis on Africa and the south. And then on the back of that, we then agreed on the theme. So as you all know, that we had agreed to a theme on solidarity, equity, and also sustainability. And then we put together a number of technical working groups rather, to make sure that we are able to elevate the issues that we've set for ourselves as a priority for the company. At the level of the Energy Technical Working Group, we agreed on 3 priorities. Those priorities had to do with the energy security. The second one had to do with just an affordable energy transitions. The third one was to do with the issues of regional interconnectivity. So essentially building, and if you like, the highways and the byways that are going to make sure that the continent is connected. Of course, we've got one in the south, in the east, Central Africa, West Africa, and North Africa. The big plan is that, or vision is that sometime in the future we'll connect South Africa into almost like a single electricity market. And then we agreed that in addition to that, those priorities, we said we will strive to get about 7 outcomes. The one is on energy security toolkit. We wanted outcomes on infrastructure investment plan to accelerate deployment of clean cooking solutions. We wanted to push an area on energy affordability toolkit. The fourth one was on principles for sustainable industrialization hubs, including low to zero emission hydrogen and ammonia. The fifth one of the outcomes was on the action agenda for just and inclusive transitions. The sixth one on high-level voluntary principles for advancing regional power integration and trade. And the last one was on Africa's 10-year infrastructure investment plan for cross-border interconnectivity. Of course, I mean, you can imagine that given the polarity of views in the energy complex, it was always going to be a very difficult ask for us to be able to get to a consensus that then gets to be lifted into a communique that means that all the parties in the room agrees that on the formulation of that outcome. And as we expected to form, I mean, we're able to see those tensions very apparent. Sometimes it's a binary discussion, or renewables on the one side and fossil fuels on the other side. And of course, there's a middle position of doing all of the above. I think what was important here is that we're able to ensure that we surface those issues. Conversations were able to happen and unfold. But we also agreed as a country that there are minimums. There are these little things, there are these outcomes that they will constitute, if you like, the most basic of victories for us on the continent in particular. I remember I said we fashion this as Africa's G20. You know that there's 1.4 billion people on the continent. 1 billion of them don't have access to clean cooking solutions, and then of that, 600 million don't have access to electricity. So you could have people who are connected to the grid, but they still rely on paraffin, on wood, on coal for cooking because of the cost of electricity. Just the other day, we're in Mpumalanga, we launched one of our clean cooking initiatives, and we saw it ourselves. At schools, they are connected to the ESCOM grid, but because electricity is expensive, they prepare food for kids using coal, including the various households. So it's an important conversation. So I'm happy that we're able to find each other. I think as a constellation of these sovereign countries, including the EU and the AU, we're able to find each other to say, look, we can differ on all other things, but this is a human rights issue. It's really an inalienable right inherent to any human being, your right to life, and also to be free of any harmful effects. So we've agreed that before you have a conversation about the economic manifestations of what that is, principally is about your right to life. So finally we agreed. So that's an outcome that we agreed to, consensus, everyone agreed. So the legacy of South Africa's presidency is to lift clean cooking into the mainstream agenda of the G20, the most industrialized, powerful countries of the world. As you know, they account for 85% of global GDP, about 20% of global trade. They are 2/3 of the world population. So these are major powers. So we've been able to find each other. And I'm happy that, of course, when you start in the nature of this, there will be tension. But finally, we found each other thanks to the leadership of the technical team, and much later the efforts of myself and the DM to really talk to your partners and say, this is what it means for us as a continent. And ultimately, everyone was persuaded to say, look, it can be that we live in South Africa and we have not concluded just on this item. So I think everyone feels relatively good as they leave to say, we're leaving something behind. Of course, it's another thing to act on the back of that outcome. But what is important is that we've agreed to it. Africa is not approaching this with a begging bow. So we have agreed ourselves. We designed something called Mission 300, What Vision 300 is that we want to halve the number of people who have access to electricity by 2030, and that's why we call it Vision 300. On our part, DM Samantha Grain-Mare, she's leading the charge on clean cooking together with the industrial elements of SAREM. So the DM will be at the forefront, the face of our quest to resolve this question, and we're happy that we've been able to bring on board the major part. So that's a victory for us. And then there are issues that we couldn't find each other. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to pursue them. I mean, the issues on the 10-year infrastructure investment plan is an agenda of the AU, part of the AU 2063 agenda. We'll do that. There are some of the partners here who are already supporting us in that program. On the issues of green hydrogen, I'm sure you read yesterday, there was a summit, South Africa EU summit, President Mandela and von der Leyen have agreed on a set of package, I think it's 11 point.
Not Mandela.
No, I was checking if you are.
From the grave.
Maybe it's a reincarnation. Thanks. Yeah. President Ramaphosa and von der Leyen agreed on a set of packages. Really, it's a continuation of the summit that took place earlier in the year here in South Africa. President Mandela is there, so it's a concrete package. So I'm saying there are parties here, although we didn't find consensus, it doesn't mean the work doesn't continue. We are working with the EU on the issues of green hydrogen you mentioned. We're working with the Dutch also on other agenda areas. They're also helping us on the issues of green hydrogen, putting together the infrastructure in the Northern Cape, the Pukubai project that we're working on. So the Dutch are helping us. So I can go on and on. The Germans are also helping us. They are part of that set of package of the group that is supporting our decarbonization or the Jet IP. So even though on areas where we couldn't find each other here, with individual sovereign state or in this instance the EU, we are working together. So it doesn't stop that momentum. I think that's the point I want to make. There's work that the EU Commissioner on Infrastructure and Energy is doing, Ms. Mataboka, on the 10-year infrastructure investment plan. We have mapped already what these corridors look like. So we're going to continue to invest in that. So the World Bank also participating in the pre-feasibility studies and studies on some of these corridors. And the TBSA is also participating. The AFDB is also participating. So all I'm saying is that although we didn't come out with an outcome on some of these areas, the work continues. But the major victory, like I said, that minimum on clean cooking, it's huge for the continent, huge. You and I in the room can take it for granted. When we sit here, there's a young girl somewhere in a remote village who just came back from school, dropped her books, and then she went to fetch firewood. That's what we want to change. We're going to be very aggressive, of course. The level of penetration in the country relatively better than other parts of the world, but of the continent. But DM's and Grain-Mare is working on that as part of the team. She's leading that area of work, and I'm sure at the right time we'll be able to share with what we do. So we're happy, excited, looking forward to the summit itself. We have done our best, of course. The most optimistic scenario, we want outcomes on everything. There are things we knew were not going to happen. We're not going to agree on what constitutes the nature of the transition. It's almost like a given. We knew it will not happen. But it doesn't mean that even if you know it won't happen, that you don't foreground it. Because we must never stop talking. I mean, they must invest in finding this consensus. And you see, the more we talk, the more we narrow the gap. So we've narrowed it, and then it will go to the Americans. We'll give them the necessary support in the same manner that we're given the support by the Brazilians. They were part of the Troika. We'll give them full support so that the American presidency is even much more successful than us. We have an ambition of being much more successful than the Brazilian. It's not a competition. That's the point that I'm making. we are just scaling up on these victories because one feeds from the other, and that's what is important. But thank you. I'll hand over to BM for your observation.
Thank you very much, Minister Ramaphosa, and good afternoon, colleagues and friends. It has certainly been a phenomenal year for us, particularly in this department. And I'll take the opportunity just to thank our incredible team. The team at Senedi, who are the Secretariat, the staff in our department, the Acting Director General, our entities that came on board, the support we received from the likes of NEXA and ESCOM. We could not have done it without this incredible team that put everything together. And you know, South Africans are always very hard on ourselves. I keep saying this is like having a wedding. You know everything that goes wrong, but the people who are there don't. And certainly the feedback that we've received at every single one of our events has been that it has been such a high standard, and how impressed everybody is. But most of all, obviously, people are always impressed with the hospitality of South Africans. So I'm glad that we've been able to showcase our wonderful country to the rest of the world, to the G20 countries, and that we've had the opportunity to elevate the conversations around energy in a forum like this, where we've been able to showcase not only what we have achieved already as a country, but also what our needs are as a country and as a continent. And certainly the G20 has given us that opportunity. The G20 partners have been phenomenal in the ongoing support, the continued bilaterals, the continued multilaterals, and certainly, as the Minister's already said, everything that's been discussed, even though we didn't get consensus, those conversations are going to continue, and we're going to go out and achieve the objectives that we have set for ourselves this year, and that is going to form a very big part of the strategy of our department. And then I think the Minister has completely underplayed his role in what happened today. Somebody said to me earlier, there was no consensus, and then the Minister spoke, and then there was. So Minister, thank you. I've always said as well that if anybody can get consensus on anything, it's South Africa. We have this ability to find each other when we really need to, and on the things that matter, South Africans pull together. And Minister, you have demonstrated that today in making sure that clean cooking, of all the things that were important, this is the one that fundamentally speaks to human rights of people and their ability to take care of their families and to move out of poverty. And I believe that the speech that you gave in support of that is what turned the tide. Somebody said to me today, in 25 years of G20, it was the first time they'd cried in a meeting. So Minister, thank you for the power of your words, thank you for the power of your vision, and thank you for the power of your commitment to South Africa and to the African continent. We truly appreciate your leadership. And from my side, thank you to all of you, to our G20 colleagues and friends. It's going to be very sad not to be seeing you all as we progress into the next year, because we won't be hosting. It has been such an honor and a privilege to showcase our country and to build the friendships that we have, and we really look forward to taking all those conversations forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister and Deputy Minister, for sharing with members of the fourth estate that which they could not be privy to, your observations, the sentiments, the outcomes. And really, colleagues, this is really being done because we value you being part of us, the value in our departments, in our ministry of transparency and openness is really that which drives these engagements. So with that, we're going to open the floor for questions. We'll take one round of questions just for any clarity or further depth that you may seek. But I do believe that which the Minister has articulated and that which the Deputy Minister has thereon added on is clear. But we are opening the floor to questions in the room. Are there any questions for further clarity? By a show of hands, it looks like they are now.
I'll start.
Except for Ayanda Olo. And then after Ayanda Olo, any other questions, because that will mark the end of the question and answer session. And ultimately the end of this session, colleagues. So Ayanda, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Thank you, DM. I think it's a great achievement that you really came together on investing in the young future, especially as your story, Minister. You were saying that there's a young girl that just dropped her books and went to go fetch firewood. The question I have is around the financing, the funding of energy technologies. That, as you know, that our banks do have attitudes towards fossil fuels. How do you engage the financial order of South Africa and the rest of Africa? Yes, I did hear DM talking about that the developmental banks are coming on board. But what about the South African banks like Nedbank that has a clarity and policy on anti-fuel? Oh, thank you. The end.
So maybe just to say the following, on mission 300, we are part of the launch in Tanzania. So the money is galvanized through philanthropies, really led by the Bill Gates Melinda Foundation, and also the World Bank is part of that. And I know that the African Development Bank has joined. So we're not necessarily looking to other financing. Of course, we welcome any financing, but it's really philanthropies that are supporting us on the issue of clean cooking and also the mission 300. Of course, they are inextricably linked those two. For our part here in the country, maybe just to say the following: if you look at the bid windows, is the disciplined manner that the state goes out to procure private sponsored electricity generation in the country. On the back of the reforms that were introduced, we're doing away with the monopoly that is ESCOM while introducing competitiveness. If you look at the 300 billion rands that have been invested since the start of the bid window, about 60% of that is domestic capital. Nedbank, right at the top. You mentioned that the DBSA, so it's not the financing from outside. But of course, we welcome financing from outside so that we were able to syndicate and make sure that we are able to drive this pipeline aggressively. So that the new generation is going to happen. Going out now, you have seen on gas to power, just adjust some of the key matrices in relation to what the load factor looks like and all those technical issues. You'll see that we're inviting private sector to come and invest. We sure that we are not going to be short of interest there. If you look at our transmission program, the 14,000 kilometers that we are building, we've gone out on the first phase. I think we've already closed for request for qualification. All the big players from all over the world have responded, and just 17 of them made it. So there's an insatiable appetite there. How are we going to finance it? You know that is an off-balance sheet solution. What we needed to do was to design a bespoke financing, an instrument to serve as a backstop, what you call a guarantee. So I'm not going to have a sovereign guarantee, but we are going to have what we call a credit guarantee vehicle. So we are introducing, if you like, an instrument. The state is going to take about 20% in that. So we're going to put seed capital 20%, and the rest of the banks will come in. So it serves as a backstop. We're confident we'll succeed on that. The World Bank, the IFC is helping us to do that. We're talking with the minister, we don't want even the patient capital that comes from the pension fund can also take a position. So that's how we're going to finance transmission. It's a combination of balance sheet and on balance sheet. On balance sheet, because the NCCSA was in the ordinary course of things, was going to roll out the transmission, but it was not going to be at the rate at which is desired. So that's taken care of. And then we are going to, the cabinet will consider the RP next week. We're confident that it's likely going to go through. It's a 2.2 trillion rands investment over the next 10 years is again an off-balance sheet investment. So there's one of the things that has worked very well for us is the IPP program has reached maturity. There's confidence in the market that we can do these complex projects. Now we're going to the ITP, so we're confident about the success of that program. And then on clean cooking, the work that the DM will be doing, we have an annual allocation of 4 billion rands, what we call INEP, Integrated National Electrification Program. So there's that allocation. So we are redesigning that allocation. We think there must be optimal use of that allocation. Part of it will cater for microgrids connecting these rural communities. That's a fiscal allocation. You see now we'll be doing the first phase in, it's not the first phase, the one that we go out publicly, because there are a number of microgrids. But this one we've gone aggressive. Will be in Musina. I think they are done now. We want the president to launch it. It was a very powerful message on how we're going to fight, keep the exponential increase of prices, but show that there are other technology solutions that can help us to achieve universal access. We went into these 2 villages, never had electricity, any form of connectivity. As we get out now, having done a hybrid of solar and battery, and then all public places in that schools, clinics, hospitals, they'll have access to free Wi-Fi, and then there's going to be household connectivity. You'll see. I mean, it just showcases what can be achieved. So that's a program, and of course, there's work that we're doing in Sarum. And so the point I'm making is that we don't have a money problem, and that it appears to be arrogant. It is not, because we simply don't have a money problem. Once we are able to scale it up and get it to the right efficiency, then it's when I can answer the problem, the issue, if there's a money problem. If you look at INEP, we've been underspending. So let's use what is in the resource envelope, within the envelope, and if we need more, we must show that we've been able to deploy that capital efficiently, and these are the results, and therefore we need more. So we're not at the space where we think we'll need money. So the next point I'm making is that it's a combination of off-balance sheet and on-balance sheet. And I just showed that the off-balance sheet, these programs are running. I mean, you'll see when we go out on the IRP, once we announce it, go and invite private players. We know that it will be oversubscribed. So that's our list, the list of our headaches. Our biggest problem is our ability to execute and make sure that we have the right skills, the pipelines of skills, to be able to meet the demand, which we have induced ourselves through policy and also the kind of financing. But the DM, I'm sure, will be able to expand on that at some time, either now or as we go from one village to the other. She'll be able to share that with you.
Thanks, Sayanda. Just to clarify, there's financing not for nuclear, not for fossil fuels. So we can't go and build a new coal-fired power station, but we can build a nuclear power station. So that's where the funding has come in. And certainly in terms of the clean cooking methodologies, what we're looking at is things like gas, LPG, and then also things like biomass, solar stoves. So there's a huge amount of innovation in the clean cooking space. So we're going to be putting together a task team. We're going to be working as well with the AU and with the EWCTA. We've done a lot of work in the clean cooking space to put together a task team that starts looking at what are the best technologies that we can use in certain areas. Very rural areas, gas is not going to work, there's no proper infrastructure, so we'll look at biomass. Closer to urban centres where people can get access to gas, we can look at gas. Eskom are doing incredible work in terms of clean cooking as well, and rolling that out. So there's a lot of space for us to look at different technologies and the way we apply them in the South African context, and then obviously working with the AU for the rest of Africa. So watch this space. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, DM. And of course, thank you very much to all of you, the members of the media, for being part of our Energy Transitions Working Group journey. This marks the end of this media briefing. We wish you For those who are coming out of the province from Gauteng and other provinces who made the effort to follow us here for this meeting, thank you very much. We wish you a safe journey back to your destinations, and we wish everybody a good afternoon further. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll now be moving into our next event, which is the launch of the Coalition for Sustainable Industrial Hubs. We do this in proud partnership with some of our international partners who are here today, principally UNIDO, but also I acknowledge Sustainable Energy for All and UNEP as well for the roles they have played during G20. So without further ado, I'd like to call on the Deputy Director General from UNIDO, Mr. Zhou, to deliver his speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, dear friends from media, at the outset, I want to thank Minister Mahopa and Deputy Minister Ms. Graham, Maria, for really your leadership in advancing this initiative called a Coalition of Sustainable Industrialization Hubs. Actually, as some background, to ensure industrial sustainable development and keep our planet habitable, we must cut emissions from industrial activities faster. Industrial emissions account for 30% of all CO2 emissions, with high-emitting sectors representing 70% of this total. At the same time, we must advance and secure the supply of clean energy technologies. The energy transition demands a rapid scaling up of clean energy technologies, while simultaneously accelerating decarbonization efforts and ensuring universal energy access. It presents an opportunity for developing and emerging economies to drive green industrialization, especially with the resource endowment across a continent like Africa. So key minerals are essential in the production of clean energy technologies, and countries have ambition to enhance their domestic value additions by increased mineral processing, refining, and clean tech manufacturing. Sustainable industrialization hubs are geographically concentrated industrial zones, have the potential to leverage clean energy resources to drive industrialization by clustering enterprises and infrastructure for clean tech innovation, decarbonization, and inclusive economic development. Sustainable industrial hubs are also bringing to fruition that these three key recommendations of the Energy Mix and Just Transition Task Force of the G20. These recommendations call for galvanizing action to mobilize energy transition, finance at scale, supporting industrialization across the energy value chain, and unlocking investment in critical energy infrastructure. Investors' confidence can be further strengthened through well-structured public-private partnerships, which play a vital role in de-risking projects and accelerating implementation. Furthermore, the establishment of sustainable industrialization hubs provides a strategic platform to advance the objectives of the 10-year infrastructure investment plan, an outcome of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group. These hubs are integral to aligning in integrated energy planning with projected industrial demand, thereby fostering the coordinated development of infrastructure across regional economic corridors. Dear friends, it is the pursuit of this objective that has led to the launch of the Sustainable Industrialization Hubs Coalition. Sustainable industrialization hubs serve as a powerful tool to enhance participation of developing and emerging economies in clean tech supply and value chains to decarbonize heavy industries and create opportunities for local communities. Their advancement, especially in developing countries, will greatly benefit from enhanced international collaboration. So the Sustainable Industrial Hubs Coalition will enable policymakers to learn from each other and from global best practice. It will improve the quality and the transparency of data relevant to sustainable industrialization hub development, and it will facilitate matchmaking between the private sector and the government, creating visible investment opportunities. UNIDO is pleased to support the South Africa G20 presidency in establishing the coalition and to operationalize its objectives in line with this year's G20 priorities and outcomes. We are looking forward to collaborating with the interested coalition members to shape its purpose and to work toward its formalization and operationalization. Dear friends, we welcome the formal launch of the coalition today and commit to continuing working closely with all coalition members from public and private sector, as well as with international organizations like UNEP and C4O and others to make the coalition a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zhou. I'd like to call on Lanre Sasho from Sustainable Energy for All to give further comments.
Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you so much, Liam, for your leadership this past year, and in particular today, and I won't be here for a very long time. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sustainable Energy for All is very proud to be a coalition partner, and we would like to extend our congratulations to the presidency as well as UNIDO on the launch of the Industrialization Hub Coalition. And the coalition comes at a crucial juncture as it becomes clear that the energy transition and industrialization must go hand in hand, offering emerging economies the opportunity to leverage their mineral resources, build local value chains, reduce import dependency, create jobs, and play a more meaningful role in regional and global value chains. And echoing the presidency's view that Africa's energy transition must become an engine for industrialization, and development must remain at the center of the transition. And to translate the vision to action, SE4All, under its Green Industrialization Hub program, has launched several initiatives, including the Africa Renewable Energy Manufacturing Initiative, the Council for Critical Minerals in the Global South, and the Green Value Chains for Carbon Neutrality program with the ASEAN Secretariat. So today we are working with over 20 developing countries across regions to support the development of local value chains for solar PV modules, batteries, and electric vehicles with linkages to energy transition minerals by facilitating local beneficiation. And in this endeavor, we see a great opportunity for regional integration, for regional and international partnerships, particularly among G20 countries that play a dominating role in global clean energy technology supply chains, from minerals to manufacturing. SE4All's analysis, which was launched earlier this week, also highlights the key areas for collaboration that reconcile our respective priorities of more resilient, inclusive, and equitable supply chains for energy transition technologies. And we see the importance of tailoring industrial policy design, mobilizing concessional financing, strengthening collaboration and exchange, advancing regional cooperation and trade, catalyzing strategic engagement between countries on value chain development, building skills for green manufacturing jobs, and strengthening the call for reforms in international trade, finance, and technology norms. And we look forward to working closely with the South African presidency, UNIDO, and the coalition in further amplifying efforts to advance the goal of building resilient and inclusive value chains that create jobs and economic prosperity for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lanre. One cannot do anything in this life without partnerships, and to UNIDO and to Sustainable Energy for All, we truly appreciate your commitment to South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to hand over to the Deputy Minister for Electricity and Energy, Ms. Samantha Graham-Murray.
He has to say that he's the head of my office. First of all, DDG Zhu, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to be part of this incredible initiative. We really do appreciate UNIDO and their and their interventions and their foresight and their passion to develop within the green space. So thank you. And Lanre, thank you. Essie, for all just do such incredible work. We are unbelievably blessed with the partners that we've had, both for the presidency and then going forward. So thank you to all of you. And to all of you who are here, who've stuck it out for the last mile. So thank you so much for being here. It's such a privilege to stand before you at this milestone moment, the official launch of the Coalition of Sustainable Industrial Hubs, one of the flagship initiatives under South Africa's G20 presidency. This coalition is more than a declaration of intent. It's a statement of confidence that Africa's industrial future will not be imported, but built with our own energy, our own ideas, and our own partnerships. We meet at a time when the global energy transition is reshaping economies, industries, and trade flows. Everywhere, countries are rethinking how they grow, choosing cleaner, more resilient, and more inclusive pathways. For Africa, the question is not only how we decarbonize, but how we re-industrialize. It's about how we turn our renewable potential and critical minerals into new industries, new value chains, and new opportunities for our people. Our continent holds 60% of the world's best solar resources, immense wind potential, and the minerals that underpin the clean energy economy. But our greatest asset is our people, young, creative, and ready to build. This is the foundation of a new model of industrialization, one that connects clean energy with local manufacturing, beneficiation, and regional value chain development. And we're already seeing this transformation take shape. In South Africa, the Atlanta Special Economic Zone near Cape Town is a model for renewable energy component manufacturing. The Coega Industrial Development Zone in the Eastern Cape is positioning itself as a green hydrogen export hub. Across the continent, similar initiatives in Kenya, Egypt, and Morocco are proving that green industrialization is not a distant dream. It is already taking root. The Coalition for Sustainable Industrialization Hubs is our collective response to this moment. It turns ambition into action, ensuring that Africa's energy transition becomes a true industrial transition, just, inclusive, and sustainable. At its heart, this coalition is about people. It's about creating dignified, skilled jobs. It's about giving young Africans the chance to build the technologies of the future. And it's about ensuring that communities share in the prosperity that this transition can bring. Through this coalition, we will advance industrial hubs that integrate clean energy, local manufacturing, and innovation. We will unlock investment in strategic sectors, especially hard-to-abate industries such as steel and cement, by harnessing renewable energy, hydrogen, and local beneficiation. We will create inclusive economic opportunities for SMMEs, youth, and women. And finally, we will strengthen Africa's integration into global supply chains aligned with the African Continental Free Trade Area and Agenda 2063. This initiative is the implementation arm of the G20 Energy Transition Working Group's Roadmap and Action Plan on Industrialization Hubs. It gives life to the principles we have shaped together in the ETWG, translating them into real projects and partnerships on the ground. Partnerships, as Nick already said, are the heartbeat of this coalition. South Africa, through the Department of Electricity and Energy, will provide political and policy leadership, thus ensuring that Africa's priorities stay at the center of global industrialization and energy transition debates. UNIDO will serve as the secretariat, bringing technical expertise, setting standards, and facilitating South-South and North-South cooperation. G20 members and international financial institutions, including the World Bank and African Development Bank, are invited to support through finance, technology transfer, and market access. Private sector partners will drive technology deployment, establish manufacturing facilities, and expand value chains. And civil society and academia will ensure that inclusivity, accountability, and skills development remain central to everything we do. Together, these partnerships will make sure that the coalition reflects not just global ambition, but African leadership. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are announcing today's launch as an invitation to G20 nations, international organizations, investors, and innovators to join us in building the next chapter of Africa's industrial story. Colleagues, the Coalition for Sustainable Industrialization Hubs is more than a project. It's a platform for dignity, opportunity, and shared prosperity.
If we get this right, Africa will not only power its own development, it will which will help power the world's transition to sustainability. South Africa stands ready to walk this journey with all partners, confident that together we can build an industrial future that is African in origin, global in impact, and sustainable by design. I thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. And as proof of the DM's commitment to action, you'll now see her do the 100-meter dash to the airport, which I will need to join her for. But I will leave you in the very capable hands of Tebe Mamakoko. But before then, a coalition cannot stand alone. It requires partners. It requires, let me try that again. It requires willing partners who have a proven track record and whose actions speak louder than words. But we do still invite them to lend their words to us today. So it gives me great pleasure to invite the Director General of Energy for the European Commission, Ms. Dita Jul-Jorgensen, and Lais Garcia from the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deliver their country's pledges to the coalition. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'll be very brief, but for us it's a pleasure and an honor to join South Africa and other partners in this Industrialization Hub Coalition. This is a topic that is very close to our hearts, and as you probably have seen us say that just transitions always to us means creating opportunities. And industrialization for Brazil is a very important part of our development strategy, and we want to change a little bit the conversation around industrialization. And before I say how we want to change it, I want to mention and acknowledge UNIDO's partnership in that endeavor. We have been collaborating with UNIDO very closely in the last few months because UNIDO is one of the most important partners of the action agenda of COP30. And you know that we have been trying to gather initiatives, countries, stakeholders, the private sector around implementation of GST goals. And one of the most important parts of that challenge is to reduce emissions for in hard-to-abate sectors where we know that it's much harder to reduce emissions. Sometimes it's harder to electrify. So it presents challenges that we have been trying to overcome with the help of partners. So I appreciate UNIDO's partnership. It means a lot to us. And we not only want to decarbonize industry, but we want to create opportunities. So we want to participate in the new supply chains that are being created by the energy transition and by the new sources of energy that we are producing or want to produce more of. And Brazil is very much interested in being part of the international hydrogen supply chains. We have a very bold plan to become a very competitive producer of hydrogen. But we don't only want to produce this hydrogen and send it away. We want to produce low emission products in Brazil. We want to integrate our supply chains with other countries, perhaps more developed ones that have more complex supply chains. But we think that this is the smart way to do it. Integrate supply chains, move part of the supply chains closer to where there is abundant renewable energy. That's the case of Brazil. So we can actually have more competitive products. We can have better prices, so we can all benefit from the energy transition. So this is an important part of the conversation for Brazil. And I really appreciate the opportunity that South Africa has created with other partners to gather momentum around this topic. I believe that we can use COP30 and the agenda that we are planning to gather even more partners there. So you know that
we can't make this happen at COP32. So let's hope we can do this again and meet again in Belém very soon to continue gathering momentum around it. So Brazil is proud to be part of this hub, and we hope that more developing countries and developed countries can join as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I think it is time for some well-deserved rest for all of the South African team who have brought this successful, well-managed and really impressive G20 Ministerial to its closure today. So thank you very much to you and teams, everyone who has been working for this. We in the European Union also warmly welcome this South African initiative to establish Sustainable Industry Hubs Coalition linked here to G20. We look forward to meeting everyone again in Belém very soon to continue this important work. We agree that we need to make sure that the energy transitions also create opportunities for developing economies in particular and for local communities to participate in the manufacturing, innovation, and draw the full benefits, the full opportunities of what the global energy transition has to offer. We also know that we are going to need more technologies, innovative technologies, stable and robust value chains in order for the decarbonization of, in particular, heavy industries to succeed. And we know that that decarbonization of industry offers an immense opportunity, and like others, we do want that opportunity to be shared globally for a just and equitable transition globally, all the way from critical energy transition minerals through the processing, manufacturing and supply chains. There are opportunities, and those opportunities should benefit everyone. So we are very much open for cooperation, open for this coalition, and open in terms of international markets, trade and investment into these sectors. We are, in the European Union, an important market, and so our partnership, our investment, our openness, both multilaterally in the context of G20, but also our bilateral partnership with South Africa, offer immense opportunities. This has been a fascinating, interesting, rich and inspiring week, both here in Durban at the G20, but also meanwhile in Brussels, where our two presidents, your President Ramaphosa, our President Ursula von der Leyen, met at the Global Gateway Forum. It was a meeting of leaders, but it was also a meeting of minds, and a meeting in the recognition that we need to act to accelerate the transitions, and we do that best by working together multilaterally in G20, in the Global Energy Transition Forum, but also working together bilaterally. So the announcement yesterday of Team Europe, European investments under the Global Gateway of close to 12 billion euro to South Africa is a very clear reflection of that reality, of the importance of the partnership, but also of the potential and opportunities that this offers for South Africa as part of sustainable industry hubs and the green energy transition. So I think events here and in Brussels this week speak to each other and would really rather be the start of an even closer cooperation, partnership and opportunities for South Africa and the European Union. So thank you very much to the government for hosting this.